Welcome to our podcast, Our Story to Tell, where we take you behind the scenes of moving our family abroad and how that move changed everything for us.
We're Risa and Tanner, an American family living life abroad with our two little adventurers. From the US to Germany, Japan, and now Italy, this podcast is more than just travel. It's a story of transformation too.
Everyone has a story, and this is our story. And maybe some parts of it will sound a little bit like yours too. With that, let's dive in.
So if you guys have ever wondered how we fit podcasting into our lives, we do it once the girls are in bed. Tanner just woke up.
Yeah, don't say that we always do it when they're asleep. There are times where we're able to fit it in during the daytime. It definitely makes it easier when it's done. But tonight's one of those situations where I just woke up like 10, 15 minutes ago, not on purpose, but falling asleep with one of the kids, putting them down. And it's so hard right now because all I want to do is just like go back to sleep. But we've set aside the time to film today's podcast episode to kind of take off from where we finished off. And that's just like telling a little bit more about our experience here, starting out in Italy. As we've mentioned a few times, we've been here for now just a little over a year. A lot has happened since then. We've had a lot of great adventures, but we just wanted to recap a little bit of some of the areas and some of the points that we haven't maybe mentioned a whole lot of.
Yeah, in our past episode, we talked about a Reconstruction era, and that took place here in Italy. We left Japan with a couple months earlier where we had voiced that we no longer wanted to be a part of the Mormon faith. So Italy was like our fresh start physically and emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And so in that podcast, you'll hear us talk about some of our experience in Italy, but most of it is through a spiritual lens. So we thought we definitely need to talk about Italy, but touch on the culture, the food, the culture shocks, the language immersion, as our experience has been very immersive, and there's a lot we want to share with you. Yeah, like you said, let's get started.
So when we first arrived to Italy, it was like end of December, 1st of January, pretty much dead of the winter. We noticed quite a bit of difference coming from Japan, where it was pretty mild along the coast where we lived. Then we came here, and I remember just like the first week, it was pretty much foggy for like the whole time. So it's kind of like a shock for us there.
Yeah, Japan winters were my favorite because most of the days were clear blue skies, sunshine was out. It was definitely jacket weather, but it was just so happy because it was so bright and there was a lot of sunshine. So coming onto the plane, having a layover in Germany and like seeing all the rain and the fogginess in Germany, and then flying to Italy and having it be also like just like gray skies, couldn't see the sun for a couple days, and then it would come out, and then a couple more days and it'd be kind of gray. That like was the first culture shock that really stands out to me. It's just those weather changes. But I do have to say, like having a full winter that we just had, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be when we initially landed.
I agree. I don't think the winter has been nearly as bad as what we had kind of thought it would be. At least for this year.
So once we've adjusted to the time change and maybe there's like a week or two has passed by, we basically start house hunting. This has been a different process in every country we've moved to. Germany, it was quite a fast, easy process. Japan took a long time. And I would say here in Italy, it was like kind of like a medium time. We'd probably seen about 6 houses until we found the one that we're currently living in. We found it within a month. So that's pretty good. But we were really working hard to find the house because here in Italy, you have to enroll your child for asilo or the public school system in February for the next school year.
Yeah, so we were kind of in a race to find a place that felt great for us to live in and then also meet the deadline, like you said, to sign her up. For those of you who maybe don't know a little bit of backside, I've typically worked for the US government on these overseas positions. And so that's the same for here. All of the places that we are finding, quote, have been like rentals, right? Like we're not going in like buying places and finding it that fast. We've heard from other people like that's way too quick to actually find a place to buy. Most countries, I would say that's a very fast pace to like find something. So renting, but still comes with a lot of time and effort to look into it, especially since we're trying to find some places for our kids to go. But we felt really good about this place. Honestly, it's really been a great experience, but complicated trying to navigate all of those differences, especially not speaking much Italian at the time, the teachers not speaking much English. So it took quite a bit of energy and effort to get to where we were.
But Willa started at the Zelo in February. So we were actually living at the hotel on the US Army base while driving her to her Zelo every day because we really wanted her to get that language exposure, which has proven to be such a wonderful decision. Even today, actually, I haven't told you this yet, but when we were picking up Noah at the same Zelo that Willa started at, she was like, Mom, I just wish I could go to Noah's school. It's just such a fun environment. They play all day and they have amazing Italian food. It's just been a great fit for our family. Anyways, Willa's going to the Zelo. We're still in temporary housing because it takes some time to sign contracts, to make sure the previous tenant has moved out. House is clean and ready to be moved in. But let's talk about some of the Italian, like specific house features.
Yeah, we were kind of surprised by the size, I think, some of the houses. When we've thought about Italian like real estate and places to live, we typically think like small, narrow roads, like smaller homes, etc. But we came to find out that it was actually quite similar to what we had found in Germany. And if you watch like some of our house hunting videos in Germany, we were surprised that there were some like very large, like 4, 5, 6 bedroom houses and multi levels, all across Germany. And even the one that we lived in was honestly bigger than what we ever needed, but it was like the best house that we had seen. We were really happy that we had the one that we did. Kind of our experience here was similar. We'd find some homes that were bigger and definitely had plenty of space, but we were noticing a lot of them were quite dated. We had always heard that like utilities cost a lot over here, and that was kind of like one of our drivers. We want to be comfortable during the summer and during the winter without having to pay like extremely high costs for utilities as well.
And when we're talking extremely high, we have friends that actually just went back to the States, but for 1 month of their gas being turned on to heat their home, it was like 700 and something euros per month. That's a lot.
And that was just for the gas. I don't think that included like the electricity bill as well. So we were trying to find a place that didn't like rely solely on like the wall radiating heaters. So the radiators they're fueled by gas. We actually have some of them in the room where we are now, but we tend to use like the wood burning stove and we tend to layer up a little bit. Just happens to be tonight that not wearing like a sweater because it's been a little bit warmer lately.
Yeah, we're seeing signs of spring. I am loving the shoulder seasons. Some other things that come to mind are the Italian bidets, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they look like the little foot washers that sit next to like the toilet, a separate thing. They're not as nice as the Japanese bidets, but they are still very nice to have. So all of the houses that we saw, including here, like every bathroom has like the toilet and then right next to it, the bidet.
I'm sorry, Italians, they are not even close to the Japanese bidets.
But I am glad that we still have them.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have, but I know so many Americans who don't use them at all. They're not used to it, I guess, but they're just a different playing field than in Japan. Like all the Americans love the bidets in Japan. Mm-hmm. One thing that you can also find in Italian homes that we loved in our German homes are the rolling shutters. Here in our house, we actually don't have them. We have like a different type of a shutter. But it is nice to see that you can have those because we said if we ever ended up going back to the States, we would try and find a company that made those.
Yeah, we just really enjoy the blackout option, the privacy option as well that's there. They're very nice. And then also like the windows that do like the fully tilting, you can put it all the way up the handle and then they'll tilt from the top. Like those have been really nice. And we have I would say most of our windows have that option, which is really nice if you want to like let a little light breeze come through, but not have the window all the way open. It's very nice.
And then one other feature that is unique to our home here is that we have a Venetian styled flooring. I never saw this flooring in any of the homes we toured, actually.
No, it's pretty much like a big epoxy looking floor, but I'm trying to remember that it's like a marble based, but anyway, it's specific to this region. And honestly, it is really cool. But it's different. And I would say like the only fault to it is that there are like certain cracks because they are such large slabs. If any time like the foundation of like the house changes or whatever, like then a crack appears and then you have like a crack in the floor. Despite that, it is really nice. It does hide a dirty floor quite well by having like the different designs, which is good and bad. But yeah, kind of a unique, different style of flooring that we haven't seen.
Okay, last thing. Our house doesn't have it, but when we were touring some of the houses had beautiful open wood beam ceilings. I feel like that's very Italian. Also, like some of the archways, beautiful designs and architecture, I feel like.
Yeah, honestly, it's been really fun to see like the different varieties of homes, and even as like we've been able to visit other people's homes as well, just to see like the difference and the quite big range, I would say, of kind of like the different styles here in Veneto.
Next, of course, one of the things that we jumped right into was the food scene here in Italy. It's fun now to talk about the food because now, after a year, we of course have some of our favorite supermarket items and favorite foods that we typically order when we go out to eat. But when we first arrived, I mean, it was just try everything that we possibly can because it's all amazing. I loved going to the pasticcerias. That's like some of my favorite memories of like, of course, I love the savory food, but the cafe and bar culture here in Italy is just so strong. Of course, going into the Italian supermarket was just like my version of heaven in a sense, because you get to walk down and see hundreds, it seems like hundreds of different kinds of cheeses. And you have like the more aged ones to the more young cheeses, but like the same type of cheese, like Asiago. It comes in so many different versions. It is a little overwhelming. At least I remember feeling that, but also just so exciting. And we would like purchase so many different kinds and have friends over here to just do taste parties. Also, the meat section in the Italian supermarkets is very impressive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like there is such an assortment of prosciutto, different types of meats, like thin sliced cuts, cheeses, crackers, pasta. Like it's such a fun variety that you get even within just a few categories of like the food, that you can honestly try like dozens, if not hundreds of different combinations, which is pretty exciting.
Italy is known for having high quality food. And I would agree to that even just by going to the supermarket.
Yeah, we really love the high quality ingredients that we're able to find at the supermarket. And what's been really fun to recognize is that even throughout all of the year, there's parts of Italy that are still fairly warm that have like longer growing seasons compared to like Germany, where pretty much the entire country goes into like a very slow grow mode during the winter. It's been really fun to see just how much produce still comes from Italy all throughout the year. And then especially like during the growing season, there's just so much produce. The farmer markets are just really fun to go and explore, find things that are more local and seasonal.
We were so surprised to find out that we could go to a farmer's market every day of the week and not have to drive more than like 20 minutes to get to one. Like, how cool is that? We've never lived in a place where we've had access to fresh produce at farmer's markets so close every day of the week.
Year round.
Amazing.
Yeah, we could talk about food for a really long time, but shifting on to the next subject, that is about like the work culture here. Now, it's a little bit unique in my situation because I work for a US military base. I'm interacting with Americans, mostly speaking in English, but one part of the interaction that I have with the Italians is just been giving me like a little bit of an insight, particularly talking about like the breaks, the lunchtime, just like the attitude that comes around the pauses in the workday. And then also just like the working relationships has been fun to see. They take coffee breaks very seriously. They're all still very hardworking people that I work with, but it has been fun to see like maybe the stereotypes of Italians can't live without their coffee. They like live for those little breaks. And it's true, like we have a little espresso machine like in my office, and several people come through, they have their little espresso, they're talking, they take their breaks, they do little walks during lunchtime. It's just a very social time for them to take the pauses, which has been fun. But also like it's interesting to see some of like the behaviors around working for Italians. Previously moving to Italy and then hearing it from like other Europeans, sometimes Italy gets the rap for being too laid back and things like can take a very long time to get done. And we've definitely seen that on like the outside when it's like things getting repaired or paperwork being processed for who knows what. There's like a myriad of things that we've been dealing with, but like it's maybe a little bit exaggerated for what I've experienced. But either way, it's been really interesting to see just like more the insight and having those interactions with my Italian workers.
So within the first week of moving into our house, we took off on our first travel experience. Prior to that, we'd only done a couple day trips, the first one being Chioggia. Do you remember that? Which is just like a cute, quaint seaside town. It's not too far from Venice, but totally different vibes. But that was such a fun time. And then I had a trail race in Liguria, and that was so fun for us to experience a side of Italy that we had, I think, mostly just driven through on our way to southern France when we lived in Germany. So most of it was new. I think it was just so fun for us to start to see more of Italy.
Yeah, and it was getting warmer, so that also helped. Having longer days, having warmer days just gets you, I think, more excited to be outside a little bit more. And yeah, it was fun to dip our toes per se. And it wasn't long after that trip that your parents came and visited.
Yes, we decided to do a road trip down to the Puglia region of Italy, which is known for its beautiful coastline, amazing food. I mean, I actually haven't visited a place in Italy that's not known for its amazing food, just like dramatic cliffside villages and towns. That's what I loved the most about Puglia was going in the off season, seeing incredible landscapes there. We continued on the drive up to Rome, and that was our second time ever being in Rome. Still to this day, I've actually went back once more with my grandparents to Rome, and I just absolutely love the gelato in Rome. I have not found a place that I am as obsessed with the gelato as there.
Which is, yeah, a little interesting and kind of funny, but that's kind of been the case for you, right?
Yes, they have like this nocciola gelato, which is basically Nutella in gelato form. And I can't find it very many other places. People say it exists, but the ones that I've seen with like similar names is like hazelnut gelato versus like the Rome Nutella gelato.
Yeah.
They're different.
Yeah, honestly, overall, that trip was really fun. Just opened up like our travel bug again for Italy. Not that it had been really that long since we had traveled and explored in Japan, but like, of course, you know us, like we prioritize exploring, seeing new places and tasting new food. So it was at the top of our list to continue doing that. And thankfully, it wasn't long after that. We were actually there like a month after, going to Tuscany for a work trip for me. And we got to go to Livorno, and we took advantage of being in that area. Coincidentally, this was right around the time that our camper van that we bought in Japan and had shipped over here was supposed to arrive. It was kind of a hectic experience waiting for this to come over here. And it took about 3 months longer than we had planned, which was a bit discouraging, but
Definitely.
we were happy that it was about to arrive. We found out that we couldn't just pick it up at the port. Like we were literally 5 to 10 minutes driving from the port, but according to a new, and I say in air quotes, new Italian law, they had to like physically transport it to like the destination that was on like the bill of lading, which happened to be in Vicenza. It couldn't be in Livorno. So we were down there. It showed up like the day after we like made it home off the ship. And then we had to wait for it to like make its way up there. But that started our adventures of freedom camping as much as possible that we could throughout Europe in the summer. That's continued all the way even until now in the winter. We take advantage of it. That's been such a fun thing.
Yeah, when I think about our Italian summer, a lot of it consists with our camper van. We spend a lot of time up in the mountains, probably trying to escape some of the summer heat. In May, we actually took our camper van down to the Balkans and we explored Albania, Montenegro, and Croatia. Beautiful, beautiful countries. And we absolutely loved that road trip. It was so fun to be able to explore with our camper van. And I feel like that was a trip where it felt like, yes, like we made the right decision by kind of taking the leap of buying a camper van in Japan.
We bought the camper van over there because they're such high quality, great condition vehicles that are available over there. We just knew the price of them over here was going to be a lot higher. So we kind of took the gamble on it. And so far it's been a really great experience for what we have and for the price that we got it. But I did what you say. We loved it. And it was such a great way. Like the kids had a lot of fun. It was just nice to be able to drive with basically a few ideas of how far we would go, but like the flexibility of like, oh, this town's like really cute. Like, let's stay here. Or, hey, you know what? We're actually feeling like we want to go to the next one. So like that ultimate flexibility was really nice and just provided for like a really great fun memory.
We're kind of here in summertime, but real quick, I just want to talk about springtime in Italy. I love springtime in Italy because the shoulder seasons here tend to last a long time. Spring's my favorite season in general, but like We're here, it's almost March, and it's starting to feel like spring, and I just am so excited.
Yeah, I just feel like the shoulder seasons tend to like move a little bit slower here. It's almost like it stays in touch with like the Italian lifestyle. But of course, Italy is so tall and long, I should say, that like it changes when if you're down in like Sicily or down near Rome compared to being up here.
Now, moving to summertime, there is a lot of bugs, like those stink bugs. We're already finding them in our house. That's just the name that I know them of because they have like a smell to them. But otherwise, I feel like some things that come to mind with Italian summers here in our house is our grass would grow so fast.
Yeah, there's tons of rain typically. Of course, there goes in like spells where it doesn't have a whole lot. But I don't think I've really seen sprinklers, like a sprinkler system or watering system, much like in Germany. There's enough water that falls that it's not needed. And ours, yeah, seemed to like we could probably have mowed our grass 2 times per week. In fact, like our landlords had even offered if we wanted to, like that they would charge us a little bit to mow the lawn and they would come twice a week if we wanted them to. That was an adjustment to trying to keep up with that as much, especially from Japan. We had 0 yard. So then coming here to, having to keep up and maintain something like that. But it was also fun to be able to get outside, work into the yard. It's therapeutic at times.
Not to go back to the bug thing, but I would say that's probably what a lot of people would mention here when they think about a summer here are the mosquitoes. They didn't bother me too much last year, but I know so many other friends that just really hate the mosquitoes during the summertime.
Yeah, and not just limited to mosquitoes. I know like spiders, millipedes, centipedes, etc. Like there's quite a plethora of bugs that seem to come out during that time. And it's probably because there's lots of vegetation that grows because there's a decent amount of rain. And then when it gets hot, like everywhere's trying to find a cool place. So the homes where they have like the brick homes like they are like this, it stays fairly cool if you open things up and let them air out and then keep things like the blinds shut. So yeah, the bugs, they also like to come inside as well. Honestly, as far as like the number of bugs compared to Japan, I think we've had more bugs here in Italy, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, in Japan, we just lived in like the heart of the city. And so I feel like that's why we were a little more protected from that. We're seeing frogs and lizards even outside. And then I did move my shoe and a centipede came out once. We're seeing more, but it's not enough for me to like be scared of finding them all over. Thankfully.
Yeah. Maybe a little funny side story is that we have a little space for our garden that we were wanting to plant some berry bushes. We really love that in Germany. And so we were hoping to kind of like recreate a little berry patch. But because we knew we were going to be gone quite a bit with friends and family visiting this summer, we didn't want something that needed a ton of maintenance. So we decided we would do some raspberry bushes. So we bought like 4 or 5 of them from a local nursery. We planted them. Shortly after, we realized that our entire garden was like full of volunteer raspberry bushes. And we had to like even thin back quite a bit of them once they got going because they would just be too many. And so we were actually pretty hopeful that we were going to have legit like a mini factory of raspberries back here.
Oh, I was getting so excited for buckets and buckets of raspberries.
Unfortunately, all the volunteers choked out the ones that we planted. So we had maybe a handful of berries that came from them.
Yeah.
And all the volunteers grew really well. We even like put sticks up, put the vines around, and we could like better harvest them later. But I don't think that we had more than like maybe a dozen flowers that even blossomed from it. It was kind of weird. And I understand that like that happens sometimes, but we have no idea why they grew and then didn't have any fruit.
I wonder if they're like a variant that just doesn't produce fruit, which is so sad, but to be determined of what this summer looks like. I don't have very much motivation this time to like do all the sticks and the strings. Like we would have had an amazing corn maze of berries.
Yeah.
So like I'm not doing that again because I'm not expecting them to produce.
And at least at this point, we just don't know how much work we want to like put into that because like I said, they were so thick in there. But anyway, just a little funny side story.
So at the end of July, we actually ended up going to Utah to go on a family trip, and that was really fun. We have a video actually where we talk about the reverse culture shocks that we experienced. Of course, we just love any opportunity to get to be and see family. But we left during a fairly hot time here in Italy, which I was actually kind of looking forward to an escape from the hot and humid heat. Although Utah's still hot, it's just a different kind of hot because it's dry air. And we actually went to Island Park, which felt quite cool and temperate. So coming back here in August, it is what a lot of people say, like Italy's just hot. It's very crowded. A lot of Italians are taking off the entire month, which was kind of new for us because in Japan, I don't really know if there's like 1 month where people just like aren't working that much.
Yeah, I think there's like periods like the Golden Week in August as well, and then like Japanese New Year, like where they would have quite a bit where everyone like basically goes back to their families and stuff, and places can get pretty crowded. But it was fairly comparable to when we were in Germany, I would say. Like there's quite a bit of people taking off a couple weeks right before school starts up again. And Italy was no exception because Italy is a top tourist destination almost anywhere in Italy for good reasons. And so yeah, for like our experience, we kind of were just keeping things a little bit closer to home. But we had actually hosted our friends from Germany, Marcus and their family. It was a really fun time to just have them here at the house. We got to enjoy each other's company. We got to catch up since it had been some time since we had last seen each other.
Yeah, our first year in Italy, we did quite a bit of hosting, which I love because not too long after our friends left, my grandparents came and stayed here for 3 weeks. So we just love the opportunity to connect with friends and family, and doing it in a country that's so beautiful as Italy. It's just so fun because you get to explore new places together while also just like catching up, like you said. So around the time that my grandparents were here, Willa started first grade here in Italy, and Noah, for the first time ever, attended a daycare of sorts. So she started at the asilo.
Yeah, it was quite the transition and a little bit difficult for us to kind of step into this new chapter where both kids were going to be attending school. I mean, especially for you, me being at work, that's not as different because like I don't get to see them as much just being physically away. But for you, especially, this was a pretty big transition. I would say that they both stepped into it quite well. Willa definitely stepped into it better because she also had her little friend group from the asilo before. Noah had a little bit more of a difficult adjustment, didn't really love it for the first couple weeks. But then I would say she slowly transitioned to be more comfortable because she knew that we were going to come back and get her. She started to like understand things better.
Yeah, I think by like the third week, Noah was actually doing pretty good, which is such a huge relief as a parent when you're sending your child to a place that's just new and unknown for them, especially like if they're your baby, like Noah is for us. These are big steps for both of us. Having her start to enjoy it in just a matter of weeks felt like a huge sigh of relief. And it was just another reassurance that like we're doing the right thing by exposing them to new languages and to have social settings, to make friends. These are important things for them. Noah has fallen in love with it. Like she gets excited when she goes to school, and she's starting to learn some of the language, which has been so exciting for us to see their growth learning Italian. Like Willa is speaking Italian with all of her friends. She's keeping up on her homework. She says she's understanding everything in her school now. Her brain is working double speed, it seems. She's soaking it in so fast.
Yeah, it's been really fun to see her. And even tonight, like we're reading books together. She's reading words that are like very long. That's also been like an interesting thing, kind of side tangent. Learning and reading Italian has been easier for Willa than learning and reading English because of all the rules in English. Whereas Italian, it's pretty much like you say it the way that it's pronounced, like the way that the letter is pronounced for the most part. There's a couple of exceptions. But it's been fun because she'll like say all the letters, how they sound. And she said tonight, I think she was like, immediatamente. She had read that one like all by herself. And I was like,
wow,
great. Like, and it was the first time she's ever seen the word, and she didn't really like struggle with it. So yeah, overall, it's just been really fun to see like the growth because of the extra effort that we've made it and put it into.
But everything is not always rainbows and sunshines. There is one thing that I really don't love about her Italian school, and that is the fact that they will turn on a show during their merenda, their snack time. We actually talked about this in a YouTube video, and so many of you guys responded back and said, that is not normal. So many Italians were hitting those comments and were saying like, I've never heard of this. I cannot believe they're doing this. And it just made me realize, dang, like, of course it's the school that Willa's attending, but this happens to be the case. But I do have to say also, talking with one of our friends, They are, yes, American, and they sent their daughter to an Italian school. They also occasionally will play movies or have shows during the school hours. And in fact, in one particular instance, their child didn't want to watch the movie that was being presented, and the teacher gave them her personal phone to watch a separate movie on it. Crazy, crazy.
Hoping that that was just an outlier situation and maybe there was other things going on. We don't know like the full story about it. Although we aren't exactly like in love with every aspect about her school, there are still so many good aspects coming from it. But from what we're told, even like the parents here within her class have also said that they're kind of surprised. So we're really hoping that like more and more of like the parent teacher conferences and more of like those discussions can be like, hey, like I understand that maybe this is to try and get everyone like calmed down and relaxed, but we as parents like would really appreciate that like this doesn't happen. So I know that it's been addressed and I know that they're trying to transition. In fact, Willa told me it's not every day anymore, but still.
So let's jump back into the timeline of things. It's fall time now. Fall time in Italy is also incredibly beautiful. Again, a long shoulder season. And we're kind of rounding out some of our big travels. So we go to Slovenia where we're hunting for fall colors, and we timed it very nicely. And then we experienced Halloween with Italian friends, which was a fun thing for us to see how Halloween is celebrated here in Italy. We recognized a lot of the costumes were more like the typical scary costumes. That was different than Tanner and I's experience growing up because we saw a lot of like character, fun, happier costumes. But kid you not, all of the Italian kids were like wearing devil ears or in ghost, vampire, maybe like a witch or something. So that was really fun. And then it's coming to be Christmas time, and this is the time where we slow down our travels. Of course, we have to hit in some of the Christmas markets. As you guys might have seen, we came out with some Christmas market videos, which was really fun for us to experience. Some in Austria, going back to like a German-speaking country, what we were used to in Germany with the Christmas markets, while also going on a trip to Lake Garda and seeing what the Italian Christmas markets look like.
Yeah, and at that point, it was like a really nice way to like end out our first year, honestly, because at that point we were ready to just kind of settle into winter. Not exactly veg all the time, but really just embrace the change of the season, trying to be closer, trying to slow down our travels, also trying to save up time to be able to go and travel with family with them. So honestly, the winter was, yeah, just that. It was kind of like a moment to recharge, to reset, to stay home, going to like local activities for the kids.
So many Italian birthday parties.
I don't know what it was, but like her class had a very high concentration of birthday parties from November until now. I think we've gone to like 6 birthday parties collectively in like 4 months, which maybe that's not like a whole lot. I know maybe for some people it's not, but for her class specifically, this age, they're pretty much always invited to everyone's birthday party. And so we want Willa to be involved. And so typically like we try to go. It's been fun, but also kind of a lot.
Yeah, it's fun to see how Italians celebrate birthday parties. We also went to like an Italian school lunch get together, I guess you could say. We'll have to talk about that another time because there's so many differences between the way that we grew up and like our eating, getting together culture versus Italians. So it's just fun to reflect back on the past year because, you know, at the beginning of the year when we first moved, of course, so much of it was culture shocks, but I feel like we can sit here now a year later and feel like are getting a solid understanding of Italian culture, especially by having Willa go to the school every morning. We're talking with Italians. We're going to birthday parties. We're starting to have Italian kids over here for play dates, and Willa's going over there. We're just getting what seems like real life Italian experience.
Yeah, it's coming slowly and we're excited to see like what this next year will bring, especially being more involved. I would say overall our first year has been very successful.
Yeah, and I feel like travel-wise, when we look into what our future looks like, a lot of it consists of Italy. Like we are still so excited to just be here to discover more places and see more of what Italy has to offer.
Lots of fun activities coming up. But thank you for joining us in today's episode. A little bit shorter and different not as heavy as like the other episodes that we've had, but we appreciate you guys following us along. And we're looking forward to the more upcoming episodes. We're going to be exploring a variety of topics, honestly, taking things as it goes, which feels best for us. And we're excited to see what comes.
And you, Tanner, can go back to sleep now, and I'll join you.
Yes, it's time to go to bed. So thanks, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.